it. I started up a review site over on Blogger, which was my excuse to look at old movies, TV shows, video games, etc., just to give an updated opinion on them, things that I'd seen from my childhood and things I just was looking for an excuse to have to see. It would eventually later turn into two sites, a main one looking at the aforementioned media, and then another one now known as the Mediaholics Toy Box, which mostly focuses on toys, mainly Lego and Transformers, because yeah, that gets a little expensive, but yeah. And aside from that, as you've said before, I've helped you out a few times with the Tech Games Fest. Those who came last year will probably recognize my face from the Nintendo room and my infamous Mega Yarn Yoshi, which took most people.
So why Mediaholics? Why?
The original name for it was just Blasters Reviews. It was the online name I use for most things. After a while, though, that didn't really sit right. It was meant to be more of a placeholder name anyway. Mediaholics just came from a joke at the Alcoholics Anonymous sort of things when I was starting to do video reviews and podcasts. So they were just stuck as Mediaholics.
Okay, and so what? So just tell me about, like, what movies have you reviewed, or games you've talked about on with Mediaholics, recently, and or even what was the first one you did? What was the first kind of review you did?
The first review I did was for Pokemon X and Y, because I just finished them around the time I'd started the site. I would eventually do an updated review of those in 2016 to celebrate Pokemon's 20th anniversary, video review with a friend of mine over in the US, which I think the video is aged better than the original review did. Stuff I've covered, though, I've reviewed most of the Marvel movies now in a yearly marathon now dubbed Mavel. Because what else am I going to call it? Been trying to do December a few times, but things have just kept getting in the way. I will get to it eventually, I swear.
Fair enough. So what do you? So with doing kind of like blogging and all that sort of stuff, some of the older terms that people might recognize. So what have you learned from when you first started? Like, you talked about the name change and everything. What are a few things that you've learned with the whole process, or putting it all together, or getting it out there between when you started and right now?
One of the things I learned within my first year was to try and keep things focused as much as possible. It was around the time I did my review of Transformers Age of Extinction, which, though it was impressive that I was able to get a review that long, I don't think anyone really wanted to see a 50-page review on why Age of Extinction was a bad movie.
Okay.
So I had to learn how to focus it in, make my points a lot stronger, rather than having to point out to every single individual scene. Not my greatest work either. A lot of the first year stuff, though, a lot of people will agree that as you're still getting going, it's not as good as what you'll eventually get to. The other thing that I learned was to always keep trying to push yourself further, try to expand things more. So I would constantly look at new things I hadn't had any prior experience with, to try and learn new things, to get a better background of inspiration. So a few other things like that, honestly.
All right. And like, why do you do it? Is it, it's just something you always wanted to do, or is it just a great way to express yourself? What was the motivation for kind of starting it and continuing it?
The short answer for why I started was honestly for boredom. Around the time I started, I was still waiting for university to start back up for the first year. So the December, January, February time period of just having nothing to do compared to year 12, where it felt like I was constantly doing every single possible thing at every single moment. Alongside that, though, there was a magazine around the time, an official Nintendo magazine that I would read pretty frequently. I've actually got all the issues over on my bookshelf. They were another inspiration for me to try and start things, along with YouTubers like the AVGN, Brain Scratch commentaries, and a few other things. It was just more a matter of, I want to see if I can do it.
Oh, fantastic. And is that, when you were doing that, you know, do you find that some people recognize you at, you know, at certain events and things like that, or?
Most of the time, people that recognize me for other things. Like they
Yeah.
recognize me from the Tech Games Fest. Not really so much my level of work, but
Hmm.
a lot of that just comes down to the fact that it's mostly written work with the occasional audio-only podcast. So there's not
Okay.
really a face to the name.
Fair enough. Yeah. Great, great. So, yeah, and of course you're continuing on with it, and like whether it's someone who's watching this via the TGF or New Game Plus stream, or you're watching it or the Cosmic Effects Gamers YouTube channel, a lot of Liam's links we are going to be putting onto posts and also at certain descriptions. So if you want to find out more about what Liam's doing and follow, you know, what he has to say on certain games and movies and that sort of stuff, we're going to have all that there. So it's worth checking out. A couple of things I wanted to ask you is, especially you know, with the TGF event, you know, you were looking after the Nintendo room. You know, you mentioned Nintendo before. Is that something that, you know, and especially the magazines, is that a particular brand, you know, that you're passionate for?
It is. I love platformer games mostly, along with the stylized cartoony games. So to me, the Nintendo systems are more of a safer bet, especially with a lot of their first party titles. Whenever a new system comes out, you all know, even without them saying it, there's going to be a new Mario, there's going to be a new Zelda, there's going to be a new Pokemon. It feels more like a safer bet to me compared to something like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, where while there's stuff for each of them I'm looking forward to, there's not enough to get me to go that extra mile to get the console, especially with the way it's looking like the PlayStation 5's price is going to be. So it's just more of a safer bet for the most part. And a lot of other games from especially the Wii and the DS era, I think, are some of the games that have helped inspire me in lots of different ways, helped me see games as more than just being entertainment.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so these are something I normally ask everyone when I do these interviews. Is, first of all, what movies are you watching, or, you know, some of your favorite movies? What's some of your favorite games or games that you're currently playing? You know, is there certain TV shows that you're watching? Like you mentioned with YouTube before about AVGN and a few others. But so what's caught your interest, and what kind of you know, what really keeps your interest?
At the moment, aside, though it's on a bit of a hiatus due to the coronavirus sort of thing, DuckTales 2017 really caught my interest, which is why I'm hoping it ends up on Disney Plus sometime soon. I'm currently working on a review of Persona 5 in the background. It's just a very long RPG, so it's going to be quite a while before it actually turns into a review. Stuff like the Isle of Armor for Pokemon Sword and Shield isn't helping try and get that either. In terms of movies, I just recently did a review of Detective Pikachu, which will give you some sort of timestamp of when this interview is being recorded. And I think my next review coming up is for the Sonic movie, I believe.
Okay.
So generally, whatever I'm working on, whatever I'm watching, whatever I'm playing, it generally has something to do with the review site in some form. There's not often I just watch something for casual entertainment. So.
And so what are you playing at the moment?
Aside from Persona 5 and Pokemon, not much. I did early on in the lockdown, I got through Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which, that was a that was a weird trip. But yeah, at the moment it's really just those. But that's because they're just such big RPGs. Persona 5 is, at least. Pokemon, not so much.
Yeah. So, all-time favorite game, all-time favorite movie?
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky for all-time favorite game. I love that game and everything about it.
Yeah.
All-time favorite movie. That's a tough one. I don't think I have an all-time favorite movie. There's stuff I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But I can't really pick out an all-time favorite.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, if there was three that you were like, okay, this weekend, you know, I'm going to watch 3 films that I really enjoy. there might be others, but what would potentially be in that maybe list?
Mm, the original Disney Atlantis would probably be one of them. The
Mm-hmm.
Lego Movie was another one I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And as cheesy as this is going to sound, even though I'm not a Gen 1 purist, the original Transformers movie, the
Okay.
86 film.
So with the death of Optimus Prime.
Yes.
Spoiler.
And Orson Welles as Unicron.
Yes. Yeah. It's a really good. It's a big cast. It's like it's interesting when you see people talk about the original Transformers movie and also the original G.I. Joe movie. Because I don't think the G.I. Joe movie ended up getting a cinematic release, but I think they panicked because
because of the death of Optimus.
Yeah, there was going to be one of the main characters in G.I. Joe was going to get killed off, and then they had the Optimus, and then there was a bit of a backlash, and they went, "Oh no, yeah, he dies, but we can't. He's okay later on." And so
I actually reviewed the G.I. Joe film last year as well. It was funny.
Yeah.
He snake stabbed through the heart. Don't worry, guys. He has a coma.
Yes.
Okay.
I know. And that big battle thing, the thing at the very beginning of the movie, I heard that was supposed to be the ending. So, it's that whole opening sequence to that movie with the, Cobra and all that sort of stuff, and around the Statue of Liberty and that. I always thought that was really well done, even though it's so over the top. But I just thought
it's still beautifully animated. Both films
the
are.
animation is sensational, and it just how it puts, because I love that style of animation. So it's funny because when 3D animation started coming along, I was like, oh, I'm more into 3D than this original stuff. But then as that progressed on, I was like, oh, I like the old, I like the cell animation style and those sort of looks. So it's but yeah, in recent, especially last year, I think I watched the whole complete G.I. Joe series of cartoons, and we also watched all the Gen 1 and I think season 2, Transformers and many other ones from that period. So and even though some of the stories are can be average, I was just really enjoyed the just the style of animation and just watching how they did that, and just the incredible amount of work they would have put into it back then.
I've actually done 2 separate Transformers marathons reviewing most of the TV shows aside from the Japanese exclusive stuff, and seeing the progression of the animation over time has actually been really interesting, from the original Generation 1 to the very, very, very early 90s TV show 3 animation in the form of Beast Wars.
Yes.
To just everything Japanese in the Unicron trilogy.
Yeah.
For better or worse. I'll admit Cybertron is a something I still enjoy. It might be because that's the Transformers I grew up with.
So. Well, that's the other thing is like with many people is like some things, a cartoon series, a TV show, a movie, a game, whatever it is, it could be on top 50 worst list, whatever, but on someone else's list it's like, well, it's top 10, and they go, why? And I go, well, it was the one I watched when I was younger, and it really made an impression. And you have it, people talk about guilty pleasure, but it's like an excuse to say, oh, look, I'm kind of apologizing for liking this thing. But it's like, no, it's it's something that you have good memories associated with it. And even when you watch it again, you get a different experience out of it as someone else. And that's one of probably the different things about, writing reviews and covering those sort of things. It's your opinion. It's your opinion of what you think it is, not that, and it doesn't have to be the same as someone else's opinion. You're not saying that, putting a stamp on it and going, this is it. It's like, no, it's just my opinion on it. This is why I like it, and this is why I don't. And that's it. And if you agree or disagree, that's great.
One of the things I always try to do with my reviews is to try and look at it from both the perspective of an adult looking back on it now and my tastes and opinions of it if I was a child of the time or the child that I end up was.
Yeah.
So looking at some of the newer shows, I can see why people don't like it, but then at the same time, there's stuff made for today's kids. So looking at it from the perspective of today's kids, I can see why it's caught on, why people like it. I may not like it personally, but I can see why it's got an audience.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up now, but I'd like to say thank you very much for being part of TGF once again and being part of the broadcast. So I'll just recap that for everyone who's watching this through the DGF broadcast through New Game Plus TV, we will have the information on some of the social media, click to all the links for Liam's work. And but if you're watching this through Cause and Effect Gamers YouTube, which is this is after the event, we will also have all the information in the descriptions. So you can click on that and follow information on his reviews and everything else he has to say. On behalf of TGF and Cause and Effects Gamers, I'd like to say thank you very much, Liam.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
I'm glad you're not sick of me yet.
Thanks, Liam.